Hi everyone, welcome to the Brazilian panel discussion in sales. My name is Danny Claro. I'm professor of marketing in INSPER. INSPER is in São Paulo City, Brazil. Together with my colleague Carla Ramos, we will be conducting this discussion.
Hi everyone, my name is Carla Ramos and I'm an assistant professor in marketing at the same institution as Dani Claro at INSPER in São Paulo. And we would like to begin by thanking the Global Sales Science Institute 2021 for the invitation for conducting the Brazilian panel.
And we also would like to thank and introduce our two panelists who have kindly accepted our invitation to participate in this sales debate. We have two speakers who have a vast experience in sales and who we believe will be able to contribute immensely to a better understanding of sales in Brazil. Let us begin by making a short introduction of our panelists who will afterwards provide us with more details regarding their sales functions at their current company. The first speaker is Lucas. Lucas da Rocha. He's a general sales manager at Gerdau. Gerdau is a Brazilian company in steel industry. With over 30,000 employees with sales presence in North and South America with about 100,000 customers, mainly B2B customers. Gerdau is the biggest recycler in America and has industrial presence in 10 different countries, including Brazil, US, and Mexico. Lucas has a master in business administration in INSPER and extensive experience in different marketing and sales positions in steel sector. He lived in Mexico for a while and in the US as well. And now he returned to Brazil, so it's going to be very interesting to hear his experience in those countries as well.
And our second speaker is Renato Germiniano. He's a country division leader in the medical solutions area at 3M Company, an American multinational conglomerate corporation operating in the fields of industry, worker safety, US healthcare, and consumer goods. The company is in more than 200 countries with global sales of $35 billion and approximately 500 million US dollars in the Brazilian market. 3M manufactures in 37 countries and is present in Brazil with 5 sites across the country and with more than 3,500 of employees. 3M's Brazilian sales force has more than 60 salespeople focused on sales and more than 20 professionals with a customer interface role. Renato also has a master in business administration as well as an MBA in marketing, holding a vast experience working in B2B markets, being responsible for more than 15 years in the healthcare market for sales, marketing, and clinical specialties. Thank you both again for accepting our invitation. So Lucas, could you give us a few more insights regarding the selling function in your company? Describing, for example, what are the channels that your firm uses to make the sale and your typical sales process and sales cycle?
Yes, thank you, Scala. First of all, many thanks to the Global Sales Science Institute for this invitation, Professor Carla Ramos, Professor Dani Claro, also for this opportunity to talk and participate in this activity. A warm welcome to Renato and everyone who watch us in this video. My name is Lucas. I'm currently responsible for the sales area of the industry at Gerdau. And this moment is very important to Gerdau. We had just completed 120 years of our beginning, and 120 years with the same entrepreneurial enthusiasm when it was founded as a small nail factory in southern Brazil. Still, as much of you guys must know, steel is one of the most tradable materials globally. Among the countries, China stands out for its relevance in the steel market, since China accounts for more than 50% of the production and consumption of steel, actually. Currently, Brazil is among the 10 biggest producers of steel. But just to us to realize the difference between China and Brazil, China can produce in 12 days, I mean less than 2 weeks, China can produce the whole amount of steel that Brazil produces in a year. It's a huge difference between the markets. And it's the start of talking about the steel market. We need to talk about China and understand this position right now. But steel in general is very flexible, and it has different applications. For example, the same reinforced bar can be used in a very large dam or in a small extension of reform building of a small residence. It's the same material. This became a very challenge to the companies when defining their approach to the marketing or when defining their business strategies. In general, I may say, large customers are served directly by steel producers, while customers who consume smaller quantities, Carla, are served through our distributors channel. Mm-hmm. And it's very common all around the world in different countries. We work like this. Brazil is the same rule, general rule, may I say. But large customers serve directly, use the product as raw material. Steel is not a consuming product. It is used as a raw material. It doesn't matter whether in their real estate or infrastructure projects or in vehicles or equipment, domestic appliances, packaging for food, for example, it can be used. And besides that, many of the big customers are companies that have been in the market, that are in the market for many years. These big customers doesn't appear in a year for another. So the relationship between customers and providers has been going on for years or decades. As Gerdau has 120 years. You have customers from half-life of the company, some of them. A typical sales process consists, and I need to be very clear about that, just to explain to our audience. A typical sales process consists of a negotiation, usually in a monthly basis, where we define with our customers the product to be purchased, for sure, the price that you're going to establish, and the agreed delivery times. Basically, those main factors in a negotiation. It's made for the buyer team and the seller team. And here's where our salespeople act or work in contact with the companies, in contact with our customers. And this is very important, since considering that people know the product, know the market context, and know the other offers that are around. We don't have too much symmetry information. Most of the information is available. In this process, for sure, that the seller must know the product, the service process, and the customer's expectations as well. Just to ensure that the buying experience will be positive. Since it's going to be positive, the next cycle negotiation is open to be repeated. So it's a, if I put in the terms of experience, it's as repeated. So you have it each month to define who is going to be the provider. Mostly it happens in this way. Who are the salespeople in the industry still? Mainly those salespeople or sales team came from internal activities. Let me say sales assistants or technical assistants. It happens a lot. And those areas are the mainly responsible for the future salespeople in the company, Carla.
Great. Thank you, Lucas. Renato, what about in your company at 3M? Could you tell us a bit about the typical sales approach or methodology, if it's more pitch-based, more persuasive, more order-taking? If you could also tell us about your market, customer, and competitors.
Of course, thank you, Carla. First of all, thank you all for this opportunity to join this panel. So regarding 3M, 3M is a global company. We are composed by 4 big groups: industrial and safety, electronics, consumer, and healthcare. In healthcare, we have the most business coming from the medical solution division that I'm in charge of as a business leader. So the DNA of 3M is to provide innovative solutions, to have more differentiated products, and attend in a different way compared to our competitors. We have some pillars that is commercial excellence, innovative products, and also educational process. So these 3 pillars are key to have a good business development. And of course, it's not operational or transactional business development. It's more consultative sales. Based on it, we have to have a well-defined the target customers and serve them differently through direct salespeople or partner as channel, retails, and other go-to-market models. For the main account that we have in Brazil in terms of sales opportunities and sales complexity, we recruit in general nurses that have a specialized knowledge about the hospital process, just to understand better the patient journey and of course customers' needs. So also we have to support these sales people, the technical people that have more deep knowledge in terms of hospital process, care process, and everything related to the patient care, to have clearly the needs in terms of educational approach with the customer. Because we have, sometimes our biggest competitor is not some other brand or solution, but the lack of knowledge from the professionals in the hospitals, in marketing in general. So for us, it's a big challenge to identify a professional with a profile that can attend commercially and technically, just to fit with the customer needs and customer demands in terms of sales support, educational support. We have different levels of competitors in Brazil, including local competitors, much more price-focused, price-driven. And so we have to provide a differentiated value to our customers, to have a differentiated perception, because we can offer different solutions, technologies that cannot compare with just a price-driven solutions. So it's really hard to develop and close the sales without to have well prepared all the customer understand, and these sales people very well prepared to approach physicians, nurse, and also administrative area. One thing that have been evolving last years in hospital markets is the hospital management. In the past, we used to have physicians as managers, but now they are recruiting CFOs, CEOs from automotive industry, trying to professionalize much more the management in the hospital as any other industry. So the demand from our sales rep, it's coming more sophisticated. We cannot only approach technically with the customers. We have to have our team well prepared to offer not only a good technical solution, but also a cost benefit, a health economic analysis to provide them that solution, even more expensive by itself, can save money and generate productivity to their process. So I would say that to have a differentiated team, very well prepared in terms of technical and commercial, and now economically saying, it's key for the success of this business in Brazil. And I do believe that's not in Brazil, it's around the world.
Okay, Renato and Lucas, thank you very much for this initial words and explanations about the markets that you two work on. And it's interesting to notice that we have two very different markets, one more exposed to international fierce competition, while the other one is more a local one. And both have to deal with customers within Brazil, and a long-term relationship, close contact with the customer, providing more than just price, actually providing service, and the whole idea about customer experience that people think it's just about like B2C. So when dealing with consumers, end consumers, in the B2B context, we see two, examples of relationships with customers in B2B that requires this close contact, this intimate relationship, because otherwise they don't, salespeople do not develop this customer knowledge, and you two post this really, clearly, and the challenges are, go beyond the price. It is about relationship. So I would like to then move on to another question that we have, and it has to do with the success factors. I wanted to hear from you, what is your, sales team, success factor? I mean, what do they do in order to satisfy the customer? What are the challenges that they face in the market in a normal situation? And maybe you can even bring in already the pandemics, which is already like giving you guys a lot of work to do. So could you tell us, what would be the success factors of your sales team?
Yes, Danny, it's a good question, because when you start by the concepts of defining factors and success, it's good to have this point. One of the main success factors for sales team in general, and I also believe in the company I work for, is to interpret the value proposition and translate it to the customer. Because the customer it's around, as Renato said, it's different, context is changing, and the value proposition need to be translated. It doesn't matter where the customer is, you go for it. But of course, it depends a lot on the team's knowledge about the product, the delivery process, and the availability of the product, as well as the experience that is going to be built, and the experience that the company expects the customer to go through during their purchase process. I've been working with marketing and sales for a long time, and it's always a fight. Marketing defines the value proposition, sales deliver it, and most of the times marketing wanna to do a proof sales strategy. Sales doesn't mess up the whole thing. And it happens a lot in all the countries. I don't believe Brazil is an exception about it. Specifically in my case, the knowledge of the product characteristics and the availability process are fundamental. There just must to do items to deliver. But they are not differentiating factors in normal times. I may say in normal times. However, the purchasing experience that is deeply related to the relationship history, as well as the appropriated pricing of products, are the points that can generate this so-called differentiation in this steel business case. And I believe that the main challenge for sales people are in showing this value proposition to customers and achieving their preference in the long term, Danny. But it's not a easy task to do, for sure.
Very interesting, Lucas. And it's very interesting as well to see how you guys work with very different products and services. So we're talking about a commodity, steel, and 3M, a very specialized product and services. And yet you keep on talking about how it is important to have relationships with customers, negotiation, how salespeople have to be knowledgeable to present the value proposition, and so on. So I was wondering, Lucas, regarding the movements and trends that have been taking place over the last years in the sector, how that has impacted your business activity.
Yes, it's a huge period of time, Carla, to talk about, like 10 years. It has changed a lot, but these main factors haven't changed too much. The steel business is not so dynamic as technology or any other things. Like the product is basically the same. It's moving faster in the last years. But if you get a perspective, it's not going to change too much, the product in itself. The process has advanced. The product is basically the same. It happens because sometimes it's related to traditional sectors as customers. If I say that, I say to you that more than a half of the total steel is used in construction, you're going to realize that construction is not a sector that evolves too fast. So it doesn't demand the steel industry in an organized way. But for the other side, if you look to the vehicles, automobile industry, in how this change that has happened in this sector, yes, here you are a huge difference. And I believe in the next few years, we say with the electric cars, we're going to change a lot. And the industry, the car industry push the steel industry to follow it with new products, with new technologies. So if it depends too much, Carla, from the sectors that are dealing with. Inside the steel sectors, we have some important issues. We need to address the environmental thing. We need to adopt new practices to modernize the process, but the business as a whole thing. So so many companies are changing in this way, and I believe it's going to change in the sector in the next 10 years, Carla.
Thank you, Lucas, for your insights. Again, it's so interesting to hear you saying that such a mature industry, a commodity product, I was so surprised to hear you saying value proposition, and I'm so glad to hear that because we know really well, and you explained that not long ago, that the competition has increased a lot, and so customers becoming more demanding, and your salespeople need to have the differentiation aspects of your product and service on top of their fingers, just to explain and shoot in the customer's head. So I thank you for your contribution right now, and I'm really curious to looking forward to hearing Renato, what he has to say about the hospital. It's a market that has been changing a lot over the years, and with the pandemic, things have, I believe, has intensified even further. So, Renato, can you tell us about the success factors of your salespeople, if your personnel that go and visit customers and make the business run?
Of course, Dani. So as I mentioned it before, we have to serve different customers in different ways. Just to give an idea, in Brazil, you have more than 6,000 hospitals to attend, to cover. Of course, it's impossible in a consultative sales process to attend all of them with the same approach, with the same team. So first of all, it's very important to have well-mapped and defined customer stratification to define which kind of customer will be attended by 3M salespeople, which one will be attended by distributors, and which one will be attended by retailers. Talking about salespeople, 3M salespeople directly, we understand that some success factors are very important when we are talking about consultative sales with big accounts. First of all is prioritization of customer that I mentioned, but also we have to understand for different portfolio or segment into the hospital, what is the biggest opportunity that we have? So understand this opportunity to prioritize our resource. Second one is the support that we can get to the sales team. Sometimes market team, the staff team in general in big companies don't have a very rapid response to the sales team or have a lack of focus on customer needs. So one important success factor is to have a multifunctional team coordination centered on customers that can provide fast and in a robust way the tools and support that the sales team needs to deliver their value proposition to the customers. In another hand, all of the team involved on customer relation or business intelligence must to have electronic and analytic tools to help them to manage these priorities, the results, and also how the business is evolving across the time. Usually we have in a hospital between 2 or 3 months since the start until the end to close a sales. So there is a big sales cycle time. There is some different project approach with different resource, people involved in different instances, including regulatory, insurance companies involvement, buyers, and of course, our main targets, that nurse and physicians. So to have tools to help this approach with numbers and analytics, it's key for the success. Talking about managers, because we have a big team in Brazil, we have to split it in different regions. So we have many regional managers and of course, corporate managers. Discipline and rhythm on commercial activation is key also to analyze, to follow up in a frequency way with the sales team what is going on in a good shape or not. So just to help them and support them, to give them a good direction or extra support to close sales, okay? So like also here we have to have good tools to support this kind of discussion. Salesforce.com is an example that is the main tool that we use today to follow up all the pipeline opportunities and business development. And regarding about customers, you talk a lot about relationship. I think it's mainly in Latin America, the people like to create empathy, to create a kind of relation, confident relation. So we have to be a solution provider and not only a product provider. We need to understand all the process that our products and solution will be involved. So to have a good support in terms of educational team, educational tools, workshops when it's needed, or even a differentiated program for different customers, just to create this kind of intimacy with them. If we don't build this kind of intimacy, probably will not succeed with our sales. So I would emphasize these three main points in terms of sales success for hospital market.
That's great, Renato.
I would add, Carla, something in here at this moment, because Renato mentioned something like relationship. In my perspective, relationship for a foreign people that arrives in Latin America may say, well, these guys spend a lot of time in relationships, in breakfasts and dinners and lunches, very long time on it. But it's needed to understand the real importance of this relationship, because we count with a lack of institutionality. We count with a lack of formal instruments to do business. So know the people, know the person that's in the other side. Get this, as Renato mentioned, intimacy, know the process, know the business, know the history. It's all part of doing business in Latin America, and it's a crucial part of the sales process as well.
Yeah, since Lucas added this, I just want to emphasize the Latin culture, as you two brought this up. Indeed, trust is key. Social norms. I mean, we need to be, face to face. We need to talk to people. We like to talk about soccer. We like to talk about kids, the way they go in school and stuff like this. So personal life is it's somewhat mingled with professional life, and this is the way we do business here. And Renato and Lucas, thank you very much for bringing this up in such a nice way. Carla, I hand on the word to you.
Thanks. So it seems like both 3M and Gerdau, to have success in sales, you have to invest many resources assessing customer value and understanding what is it that they really need to deliver the right value proposition. Also training salespeople, right? And even changing their mindset so they can focus on customers. But I would like to continue a bit more this issue regarding the use of analytical tools and digital tools. And I would like to ask, because you were talking about how, for example, Salesforce is being used to manage the Salesforce. And I was wondering if you're using any kind of digital tools with the customers. And considering that here in Brazil, like Danny was mentioning, you guys as well, because we have a lot of focus on close relationships, interpersonal relationships, how do you manage the challenge of keeping that closeness and informality through digital tools? I would like to hear you back.
When thinking about digital tools, or I may say digital transformation, for sure, this is accelerating practically in all sectors of the economy. It's present. I like to take, Carlos, a few steps back and recover some communication failures that we had in the past. Because if we're from the 80s, and we live in the 80s, but you arrive here today in a house or in a company, most of the chains are related to internet, are the facilities of the easily that communication had going on. And in addition, I would like some myths of the sales activity that is very present nowadays. The most significant myth, in my opinion, was that the sales activity would be carried out by someone who did not succeed in any other activity. This is a myth. And this is no longer applies today. Sales position doesn't leave room for amateurs. And this change of digital transformation enforce it much more. Mm-hmm. As Renato said, the actual tools that we are using, we need to be trained for that. They need to be able to use them in a good way. But the sales positions, the sales people need to be very competent, extremely competent, to deliver this company value proposition. As Danny told us before, of course, a few years ago, the lack of communication, needed a guy who goes around, do a tour with the inside the country to do what? Taking orders. It was a necessary character, but not anymore. Currently, with the ease of communication, the entire transaction process can be automated. And the seller has other responsibilities. It's not a taking order anymore. Such responsibilities are much more directed, yes, I believe, at building the relationship. Mm-hmm. This is the main factor of sales. Building this relationship, increasing our presence with the customers, know the customer's business, and delivering a great contribution to this business. So I believe that we are going through a process of building the so-called the next sales generation right now. And it's going to happen. You're going to see, Carla, a lot of change in the next 10 years for sure in this area, I believe.
But Lucas, would you say that the customers miss this interface, personal interface, or do they appreciate the fact that they are not being visited all the time?
No, they still appreciate this presence. For sure, the real presence that contributes. Actually, nowadays, when you are meeting with customers in a digital way, for this activities like this, or talking from each one from his house, the customers get happy to receive us in their workspace or their home. Because we're going to bring them some information, relevant information. We can talk about, yes, we talk about other things, not just business. As Danny said, we talk about soccer, we talk about kids, we talk about politics, we talk about economics, but you also bring them relevant information, Carla. And this proximity, it generates trust. And trust is something we need to talk about.
Renato, how is it at 3M?
It's very similar I really appreciate the comment from Lucas about the customer still prefer to have face-to-face contact to generate empathy. Empathy is generating confidence, trust, and everything that's important for a stronger relationship. So I think we have to split it in different ways in terms of digital tools. One is to assess the customers. Other one is part of your question regarding the management of sales, business intelligence, and everything else. Talking about customers, I think in the beginning of the pandemic, we have much more customer openness for a high frequency of virtual meetings. But now we can observe that some customers are kind of tired and not so open to receive us virtually. They want to see on our eyes. I think there is a kind of a social capital that we can lose if we go totally for virtual calls. So our understanding in 3M and my personal understanding is that the hybrid model will be the success for the future. We have to have the presence physically, face to face with the customer, but we can have other deployment of some projects or discussion virtually, because there is no how it's clear how we gain a lot in terms of productivity and also reduce sales cost. We are in more time, in less time, in more customers. We cannot, the total costs involved, including in logistics, time spent, we save a lot of this in terms of virtual costs, but it will not replace the presence with the customers. Also, the digital transformation accelerate a lot in events and also in communication material. So when the pandemic began, we just review all the materials that we have virtual in terms of video, in terms of how to use products. Also, we make a lot of workshops, panel with the professionals, and it works and works very well. But we have to have the contact, mainly because of cultural of our people in Brazil, that we want to be in contact with each other. So we have to respect these aspects, but we cannot forget about the virtual and other digital ways to approach customers. And talking about internal sales management, not only Salesforce, but one important thing is to have like a Power BI. That's a tool that you can translate all the sales data, financial data, split by segment, customer, portfolio, professional, region, to have dashboards fast and clear to understand some situation or support us to take decisions. So I think the digital transformation came to be more accelerated, but will not replace at all the relation with the customers face to face.
And another topic, thank you very much for sharing this with us. Yeah, Lucas, go ahead.
There's a particular thing that could be curious to our audience to talk about the visits, the presence when you go in face-to-face visits. That's the drink, the so famous Brazilian drink, coffee. All the visits are followed by a coffee, what you in a very special way call little coffee or cafezinho, and it's a typical drink from Brazil, and it's among the whole environment of going with the customers, talk about it, and the coffee is present every day.
Yeah, it's good to remember that indeed coffee is is part of our life here in Brazil, and it's a way to congregate like with family, and we do this as well with customers. And thank you, Lucas, for bringing this up and reminding us that perhaps we miss some coffee right now, right? Uh, so it was very interesting to hear the way you are, facing the challenges of COVID, and the pandemic period has forced us to see life in a different way, from a different perspective, and in our own personal lives, as well as the way we do business. And one thing that we see changing a lot is the communication, and the communication, because since we cannot meet people face to face in person, we need to use those technology tools, like this one, the whatever, Zoom or Teams, or other tools that are available to communicate. I We wanted to hear you too, what you have to say about communicating with the customers, and how customers receive this new way of establishing and maintaining relationships, which is, I mean, yeah, you can have a coffee, but from your home, while I'm having a coffee from my home. And then we try to have this informal conversation, at the same time trying to do some business with the customer. So if you could share with us some experience that you had with this, new way of approaching the customer, using those, communication technology tools available. And if you could also share with us, the communication with the team, the sales team. And if I understood correctly, I think Lucas just moved from Mexico to Brazil, and actually didn't have the chance to meet in person his own sales team. And so if you could address, the communication with the customer and the communication with the sales team, would be really interesting for us to hear right now. Anyone who wants to start?
Yes. Yes, Danny, it's for sure. I just arrived in Brazil, back from Mexico, and during pandemic time, so I didn't have the opportunity to meet with my team. Some advantages, disadvantages had appeared during the pandemic times. And the pandemic has brought many challenges to the steel business too. We had to go through a considerable impact on the supply chain, because when the lockdowns start in South America, mainly in Brazil, but in other countries too, the companies contract very suddenly, in very fast way. And it caused because the arrival of the pandemic saw with this contraction, and it blocked the flow of material for a couple of months. And you imagine a huge steel mill producing, it had to stop. It's not possible. It needs to go on, because put off some steel mill and start on. It's not a easy way, like just turn on a comment. It's always it's kind of complicated. But although you have a social distance, many activities continued or even increased during the last year. The paralysis and resumption of business activated in the steel sector the so-called bullwhip effect in the supply chain, and it complicated things. How are you going to communicate with your customers in a very good way, since you're going to visit face to face and communicate? Now you need to advise it in a digital thing. Man, I don't have the product to deliver as you want, because we start again, but it's not easy. In some activities like construction doesn't stop during the pandemic completely. Some of them increase. So this a very rapid and unexpected change in the value proposition. This is the main thing for marketing salespeople. It changed the value proposition. The most drastic change were due to the availability and the cost of materials. As I said, China doesn't sleep during lockdowns. China continues to consume steel. And it generates an imbalance in the whole supply chain of steel and the cost of the materials. I'm not talking exclusively about steel, but about different raw materials in general. And these factors, availability and price, are decisive for making a purchase in a company. So in this context, it's also inserted the management of the sales team for sure. As you mentioned, how are you going to manage them and how to give them the necessary conditions to perform their activities as well. The first action that's very important was to make the sales team safe and supported by the company. Because, sales activity is not carried out inside the company, inside the walls of the company. It's outside the company of customers that the salespeople live or perform their activities. With the pandemic, this was no longer possible. And observing the company values at this time, we choose to carry out the entire sales process in the self-paced way for our team and for our customers. So avoiding visiting or be around the market. So start to work from home, the main case. In the end, I believe that it was a successful thing in generating, even in this moment, a positive experience. Because some of the positive things that we realized is that the leadership of the company could be present more frequently. Imagine Brazil is a continental country where the distances are huge. But for instance, in a virtual way, it's possible to be in different regions during the morning of a Wednesday. It's some advantage of these virtual things. You can do it north, you can do south, you can do the southwest of Brazil. So it's possible to be much more present with customers during these unstable times to give them the transparency of the process and to accommodate our value proposition as the first time we plan it, besides the pandemic times, Dani.
So I have two examples that I can share with you. One is regarding customer relation, and the other is regarding sales team and team in general. So starting about the team, I think one important thing due to pandemic is that everybody bring to be more humanized, more empathic with each others. As Lucas mentioned, we have much more, we shorter the distance between people, between leaders and sales executive. So we have the opportunity to have much more people in a virtual sales meeting than compared to a room sales meeting at the company. Usually the salespeople used to be in the field and the leaders or other support team discussing strategies, discussing very focused on the results into a room meeting. So considering the humanization, let's say, that pandemic bring to us, I think the companies change a little bit the eyes to the sales team. Mainly because sales team used to have all the time in field, all the time in traffic, all the time with the customers, and then they are just closing to their house. And when we open a camera, we are going into their house. So it was also an opportunity to know their family, their pets, their kids, that bring more, like to say, how to say, my soft way to the relation between leaders and the executive team. I think it could put everybody on the same page, with the same angels, with the same phrase. Everybody just expected what would gonna happen with us, with my family, with my friends, and I think it bring to be more easy to connect all the team together. So trying to, how to say, to bring more comfortable, emotional comfortable to our team, we try to do something different. It's like a happy hour, Halloween sections, and also cooking sections. Some moment, some people just offered himself to prepare a plate and share the food with all. We send to their house a kit with the basic material to prepare together with them. So it's a kind of to create more connectivity with the team, and it's bring more collaborative environment with the team. It really make a difference to comfort, to bring more comfortable relationship with all. Talking about customer, we used to have more than 15 years in medical solution division, a kind of a certification program that we recognize hospitals and professionals when they apply best practices based on guides, international and national guides, for the best outcomes in terms of patients and their process in general. So it's a kind of Oscar at once a year that we invite every hospital and professional to stay with us 2 days in a hotel with international speakers, 2 days with technical speakers, KOLs, key opinion leaders, influencers, with translation simultaneously, but all of this physically. And at night, a big dinner just to recognize the certified. So it's just like an Oscar show. It's very fun. And last year, we was thinking how we're gonna manage this expected event for our key customers. So we developed with an outsourced company, a hybrid event with a very sophisticated platform in a virtual, we create a virtual congress with different rooms, with different speakers, all the speakers, including international, is still being part of the program, but remotely. And we could recognize, we could put together more than 600 people from our customer. And of course, more short event, 1.5 days, but we could deliver to them the same value that we used to have with presence. And of course, there is a lot of save in terms of investment. Once everybody was in their job or their house, and we need to go to the different cities and stay at in a hotel. It was a really interesting experience.
Thanks, Renato. You want to add
I
something?
would add, Carla, I would add some important thing to our audience to realize that you're talking here about big companies. When you consider in Latin America and also Brazil, for sure the pandemic has bring a lot of impact for most of the population, because most of the people doesn't have the conditions to work from home. They work in a daily activity outside in the services, in the stores, and selling things in the services of hotels, bars, restaurants, and such a things that are not possible to do from home. So just to have this context We're talking here about big companies that have different conditions. And I would like another advantage that had appeared about the sales management, salespeople management. For instance, São Paulo is not the capital of Brazil. The capital of Brazil is Brasilia, but São Paulo is the most important city related to economics. And it was a practice to bring the team together, like Renato said, and once a year or every month to do the meetings, the result meetings or the planning meetings, whatever. And it's not necessary anymore. We adapt ourselves to do those meetings that involve hotels, travels. We are doing this digitally. So you get a lot of productivity and a cost reduction at the same time.
That's perfect. Thank you so much. So it seems like COVID brought many challenges, both in managing the sales force as well as managing relationships with customers. But at the same time, it brought many opportunities, right? And you guys mentioned some of them. It also seems that COVID forced some companies to speed up the digitalization process. Some companies that were staying behind, some of your competitors, had to speed up. And I would like to hear your opinion if some type of competitive advantage that you had because you were leading the process or something like that, if you lost that, if the gap got smaller. And also, drawing on this idea, I would like to hear what do you think are the main lessons, one or two lessons that you think you're going to take after this, what you have been going through in the COVID period?
This is a good question, Carla, because what do you learn from the pandemic thing? We're going through this. We are in the middle of this, may I say, we're talking about it previously. But Brazil specifically, as well as other Latin American countries, suffers from great political, economical, and legal instability. This is real. This means that those professionals responsible for business have to be following the changes in the environment very closely. And I believe this is one of the advantages that some companies could take in this instability to notice the little signs of the market anticipated the movements. As I told before, steel sector, you can turn off or turn on a steel mill very easily. So if you get the signs some weeks ahead, you take this advantage to take some decisions. But at the same time, you must be flexible in our value proposition. A clear example which has really impacted the economy since the beginning of the pandemic was the exchange rate. At the same time, it removed the incentives to import because a lot of the companies, Renato had some points about it, most of the companies realize that imports, it has some risks. It depends on some factors, exchange rate, for instance. But at the same time, it starts to incentivize to valor to put some importance in the export things, in the export chains. The export chains become very competitive at the same time. And these exports are producers from the machineries, implements, or something here in Brazil. They're exporting to the United States, or exporting to Europe, or exporting to other countries in Latin America. And it starts to grow during the pandemic time. So who got the signs of this change and adapt the value proposition, took advantage and in the market in very general way, Renato. But you talk about this before. I'd like to hear you more.
Carla, talking about competitive advantage, I think the companies that were better prepared for digital transformation, in a certain way, they were some step ahead of others. It was a big window of opportunity, the pandemic, just to position themselves itself as a differentiated company. You can compare in consumer behaviors, how we change our behavior in terms of consumer. Buying from e-commerce much more frequently, buying clothes, food. So when the company is prepared to attend this fast market changes, they have a competitive advantage. So fortunately, my company has been developed a lot of digital tools, and it make a lot of difference when we have to rethink all of our priorities, our go-to-market model, and adapt our team. Also, to provide the team how to use and explore for the full potential all the digital tools. Because if you have tools, but you don't have the ability to use these tools, you can also lose a competitive advantage too. So companies who are prepared really have a good moment to position as a differentiated company at the market at this moment. Absolutely. In terms of team management, I think we broke some paradigms, I cannot have a national sales manager if they are not located on my headquarters. During the pandemic, I invited a new sales manager to cover all the Brazil, but live like many kilometers, hundreds of kilometers from the company in another city, not in the headquarters. We could be more close and to have more autonomy. So I think one of the lessons of this transformation and pandemic is that we have to bring ownership at maximum that we have to our sales force. We have to trust on them, on their step, on their job, and have the right tools to control the results and activities. Based on it, make them free to their job. Doesn't make difference you be together beside them or just talk with them when they need to talk to you. So I think there's a many behavior change in terms of management also that will transform all the organization for the future.
And the KPIs have changed as well, the way you assess salespeople?
In fact, we adapted the KPIs. I will give you an example. We have one of the KPIs, number of calls per week, and how many calls was transformed in leads and opportunity qualified. So, virtually saying, we could increase more than 50% our target for calls with customers. So, of course, there's different things that we have to consider, like it's not only virtual calls, we have to go back to the field, but we changed the KPIs. But we adapted the KPIs, but not the new KPIs.
All right, so coming to an end, but not yet, we still have one question to go. Lucas, Renato, since this is a panel that is going to be watched by people outside Brazil, would be very interesting to hear, your experience and what you have learned by, running your business, running your sales force here in Brazil. and sharing with us what is different from, another country, elsewhere. What do you think that people that would be willing to come and work in Brazil, or companies that would be willing to uh, enter the Brazilian market, what could you say to them in order for them to be successful in our country? I mean, it would be nice to hear, your opinion, not only about the industry that you guys work on, but also maybe in a broader perspective, if you could, please.
Yes, Danny. It's quite important, the difference between the countries, and what you realize about, as you mentioned, I just came from Mexico. It's very similar to Brazil. It's a Latin American country. But, well, being a sales manager in Brazil, as in many other countries, or most of the countries, requires us to be able, at the end of the day, to deliver a value proposition better than competitors, period. However, we have to add the instability of the business environment, as I mentioned before, and in addition, the need, this is very important, the need to build a base of mutual trust with the market, besides the customers, with the whole market, your brand, your way of doing business, the confidence that the people are going to put in your business, in your company. It's very important to build it. If we maintain mutual trust with customers, it's possible to be present in the next negotiations, and most likely to guarantee the customer's preference, to be present, and to generate good experiences through the times, through the cycles of the negotiations. I know that trust is an abstract attribute. It has been a construct in the study of the academy and practice, and we know how hard it is to define it. However, in few words, anyone who works with sales in practice or research knows its importance. It much more important is in Brazil. This is how we work here, just to make grow our business and our customers' business. It's going. It's doing well. We're doing well.
So in my case, I will discuss more related to hospital market, that I have more knowledge to to express opinion. I would say that in health markets in Brazil have been changed very fast last year. We can see a lot of merger and acquisition, and not only hospital, but also all the supply chain merger and acquisition. So we have been facing a competitive environmental between big groups in Brazil, including international groups. We have today UAG, United Health Group, as one of the biggest players in Brazil. I mentioned before how they are making more professional all the healthcare management, and also the discussion that maybe in US or Europe they used to have 10 years ago, we are just having now. That to develop health value-based healthcare, that you can sell value more than price. So come to Brazil after pandemic, mainly just to sell a promise of good enough product with a lower cost will not work anymore. One big lesson that the hospitals had with their suppliers during the pandemic was to have a strategic partnership with some suppliers. So it was a moment just to be clear what kind of partners, what kind of suppliers are part of their strategy to growth, or others are just part of supply product to them. So I think to develop a strategic partnership with the customers in healthcare is now key for success in Brazil. Other points that must to be considered to enter to our market. Of course, our culture, we discuss a lot about relationship, Latin way is lifestyle, that we like coffee, we like to be in contact. I think this kind of connection is important. There is a lack of knowledge in terms from the professionals in the market. So before you sell a solution, you have to clearly demonstrate the problem and how to solve this problem, and then to offer the solution. Another point that is part of our politic is our regulatory. We have many regulatory issues in Brazil that must be very understood before you arrive to develop new solutions, mainly on regulated products as healthcare products are. Okay.
Go ahead, Danny. Thank you so much, Renato. Danny.
All right. So, yeah, I wanted to go to the closing session. Carla, would you like to add something more, or maybe Lucas and Renato would like to have a last minute word for me to close the panel? Is that okay? All right,
okay,
all right.
fine.
So okay, so I get the mic then. Thank you. So I would like to very quickly just wrap up this very interesting panel. I hear today the importance of salespeople in managing and building relationships with customers, no matter the pandemic period that we are facing right now, we are living in right now. Communication is key, and salespeople needed and will be in, be challenged to, learn the new ways to communicate with the customers, to build up this, close Latin way of doing, paying a visit to the customer, not even leaving the office to meet the customer, and having a coffee in this digital way. We also learned the importance of, adapting the promotion and developing products, most important of all, services to deliver to the customer. In this new way, we also learned how important it is for the salesperson to, develop trust, empathy, not only with the customers, but also with the colleagues and, managers. The way we now do things, will have a great impact in the future, even when the vaccine arrive and we'll be able to go and really pay a visit to a customer. And again, deal with the traveling, with the commuting, with the all airports, hotels, and all the costs that are around, and also for the customer to having to wait for the salesperson pay a visit, and so those kind of things really will impact the way we do business. And I would like really to close this panel by saying that Renato and Lucas, you guys were really terrific in sharing the experience that you have, in managing the sales team, in facing the challenges imposed by the pandemics. Carla and I, we really appreciate your participation in this Global Sales Science Institute 2021 panel. This is going to be broadcast to several people around the world. And I'm sure that you were able to convey a very interesting and rich message to this large audience that is going to be impacted by this video right now. So I thank you very much. And with that, I close this panel.